Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar for our fifth round of the New Music Organization Fund. My name is Scott Winship. I'm the Director of Grant Making Programs here at New Music USA, and I'm joining you from the unceded lands of the Lenape people, otherwise known as New York City. I'm joined on this call by my colleagues in the Grants and Programs Department, Manisha Chowdhury and Krista Ebert, who will be chiming in, answering questions, and helping throughout. We are also grateful for the wonderful ASL services of Andrea, Carrie from SignNexus, as well as Kayla is our captioner. So to kick us off, the organization fund was formed through a reorganization of our funds in order to more directly support organizations initially during the difficult times of COVID. We've decided to continue this model based on feedback we received on the value of unrestricted and project-oriented grants. So what will happen over the course of the next hour or so is we have a lot of information to get to, but we also hope to have plenty of time to answer questions throughout. We'll be going over the guidelines for the program, as well as the application itself, and tackling a few frequently asked questions. We'll do our best to answer questions as we go along, but there should also be time at the end as well to answer more. If you could, please leave your questions in the Q&A section, not in the chat. If you could use the Q&A section, it makes it easier for us to capture and answer questions as we go through. If we run out of time and or somehow missed your question, don't worry, it is being captured here. And the answer to that will be posted along with this video to our YouTube channel and to the program page on our website. So we're capturing all the questions that are answered. If we don't answer it here, we'll have a written response that will be uploaded with the video as well. So we'll be sure to answer every question that's asked. We are recording the session, and as I said, it will be available shortly after this call, usually within a day or two, something along those lines. It should be available fairly shortly after this call. Also, we'll talk about this later, but we also have two additional question and answer sessions, one next week on March 14th, and then following, I believe, on March 18th, the dates of which are on our website, and we'll talk about shortly. So with that, our agenda is to talk about the program. We'll give you a few updates on some of the small changes we made this year. We're going to talk about the three funding areas of the program, who's eligible and what's not eligible. What are some of the requirements to apply? What does the review process look like for the program? How many awards we can offer and roughly the amounts there? What's the deadlines and the timeline for activity to take place? And then we'll get to Q&As and some frequently asked questions. Next slide, please. So the New Music Organization Fund offers grants to nonprofit organizations, performing groups, dance organizations, festivals, presenters, and venues that need support to sustain their programming of new music, nurturing of music creators, and other artists. It's really for organizations that work with living, creating artists. We'll talk more about the criteria, but we have four main criteria: artistry, impact, need, and the organization's commitment to inclusion and belonging. A couple of the changes we made this year. We are asking that each applicant complete an eligibility quiz before you will have access to the application. So you have to answer those questions before you can get into the application. We have implemented a budget cap. This is similar to a budget cap that we had last year. We are asking that all applying organizations have an annual budget under $3 million on average over the last 3 years. We're also asking that organizations that apply have a minimum budget of $5,000 in order to be eligible to the program. And as I mentioned, there are two additional Q&A sessions, one on Friday, March 14th at 1 p.m. Eastern, and then again on Tuesday, March 18th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll be recording not only this webinar, but those Q&A sessions as well, and capturing all those questions and uploading them as well. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to have your questions answered and answered in various formats. And please, we ask that you read the FAQs. There's a lot of good information in the FAQ section on our website that outlines some of what we'll be going over today. Next slide. A note about applicants that have been awarded previously. If you were awarded in last year's organization fund program, you are eligible to apply again this year. But please note that going forward next year, if you were awarded this year, you will have to skip next year and then apply again the year after. So we're asking those organizations that are awarded this year will need to take a year off before reapplying. So what are the three funding areas that the organization funds? The first is general support, which is, we'll talk about each area separately. The second is something we call creation of new work. And the last area is for our dance organizations called Live Music for Dance. General support. The general support strand is for outstanding organizations that work regularly with and support music creators and artists and offer a crucial resource to the community. So these are organizations that are either performing organizations, presenting organizations, venues that work regularly with music creators, and it's a core function of what they do. The funding for this area, it offers general operating support to awardees to support the organization's regular programming and collaboration with composers and living artists. Those organizations seeking support for general support will be asked to talk about your year-round programming, whether it be online or in person, including planned music activities, opportunities provided to artists and creators, the community of artists served, the audiences that you're reaching, the impact on your community. And we'll talk more about this in the application section, but we are asking for an endorsement letter or a statement of support, which we'll get to in a second. The creation of new work strand is really a project-based request. It's intended for a new work or a new commission that's being created for an organization. So whether that be a new commission or a new body of work that's being created for an organization. So it's very much project specific, and the funding would go towards that project rather than general support. So it goes towards that project specifically. A note on the timeline is that for those awarded in the creation of new work strand, the projects may take place from July 2025 through June 2027. So there's a little bit more time frame there in making sure the projects can be completed. In one note this year, we have a special focus for 2025 cycle, and that has to do in recognition of the United States' upcoming anniversary in 2026. We encourage applications to propose commissions or other works that celebrate this. It's not a requirement at all, but if you are doing work that looks at the anniversary of the United States in all its forms, we would be interested in seeing that. The live music for dance strand is really for dance organizations that work regularly with music creators and musicians. Again, this is also a project support strand. So it's really about a new project that's being created with, whether it be a new commission by a composer to work with a choreographer or a dance group, whether it's hiring musicians for a live performance of a new work. It's really project-based specific, and it's really meant to support live music performances and can support a lot of different activities, including musician or music creator fees, artist choreographer time for collaboration, commission fees, and dancer fees for the project. And similar to the creation of new work strand, the time frame for these projects runs from July 2025 through June 2027. I think we're going to have a poll, see how many folks are applying to each area.
About 70% done, so I'll give it a few more seconds. All right, ending the poll.
Okay, great. So yeah, generally what we see is the majority of our applicants to this program are looking for general support. And then usually second is creation of new work, followed by live music for dance. So great. Thanks for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Krista.
Hello, I'm excited to share with you all about the eligibility. First, I'm going to go over the eligibility that applies to all applying organizations. So this is all funding strands. All applicants must be based and doing work within the United States. You must have a minimum of 3 years of performing, programming, and budget activity at the time of application. So that is March 2022. Have you been an organization since March 2022? As Scott mentioned earlier, we have a budget cap and minimum. Your organization budget should be between $5,000 and $3 million over the past 3 years. We also ask that you have a dedicated organizational bank account. You are not a university. And then you are not an individual. This fund is for organizations only, and individuals may not apply. If you were a previous New Music USA grantee, you must have completed all the award activities and submitted all the required reporting. And then we ask that your organization is committed to inclusion and belonging throughout your activities and programming. Next slide, please. So if you're applying to general support, in addition to all of those previous noted eligibilities, we have that you have to be committed to producing, performing, and commissioning the work of living U.S. territories-based music creators on a regular basis. And then also demonstrate a commitment to working and performing within your community. If you're applying for creation of new work and live music for dance, the organization must confirm that any new commissioned work is entirely new work. So proposals to expand arrangements or restaging of existing work, that's not eligible. And the creators involved, they have to be based and doing work within the US and remain so for the duration of the project. They must not be enrolled in a degree giving program. And if they were a previous grantee of New Music USA, you have to have completed all of the projects that are associated with your previous award from any of our programs. I want to elaborate on the international aspect or the US-based eligibility. Your project and your organization can have an international reach. However, what your grant is going towards is has to be US based. So what this grant can fund is US based artists and projects. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Hi, everyone. I'll be going over the application requirements. So in the application, we'll be requiring an endorsement letter, as we spoke about, or artistic letter of support. We will be asking for information about your organization, information about the project and artists involved, and this is only for creation of new work or music for dance. We'll be asking information about inclusion and belonging, We'll ask music examples, and we'll be asking for financial information. So for general operating support, we'll be asking for a community endorsement letter. So this statement of endorsement from an artist or other member of your community. And it could be an audience member, a board member, stakeholder, partner, performer. And they would highlight why the organization that's applying is important to its community, what is unique about the organization's activities, and why New Music USA's support would be important to this organization right now. So this is for general operating support. For creation of new work or live music for dance, we ask for an artistic letter of support. And this is a statement of endorsement or commitment from the creator and or musicians on the project that you're applying for. And who should write the letter of support? Well, for live music for dance, the choreographer on the project, and for the creation of new work, the composer or musician the organization would like to commission. And this could include the writer's role in the proposed project. Some FAQs about the endorsement letter and letters of commitment. So the endorsement letter and artistic letter of support are application requirements that help our panelists gauge the applicant's impact on the community, on their community. And you would only need to submit one type of letter depending on the funding you're applying for. These letters can be submitted as PDF files or as audio or video files, and there are no additional formatting requirements. Just note that applicants cannot write their own endorsement letter, nor can members of the applicant organization's staff. So you would have to get someone outside. So another requirement is information about your organization, and this applies to everybody, all applicants of and all strands. So we'll need an organizational bio, the mission statement, and a brief outline of all your upcoming program, virtual or in person, highlighting your commitment to new music, the new music program planned, and any artist development opportunities you're providing. Also with that, we would like for you to tell us about your impact on the community you serve, can describe the beneficiaries of your work, including creators, artists, audience, participants, partners, and the broader community. Please let us know any ways you are cultivating creativity and leveraging new music in service of individual and community transformation. And we have word limits on each section, so this is up to 500 words. Lastly, we would like to know, why is this funding so important to your organization right now? And that's information about your organization. The next requirement would be information about your project. And this is for everyone. Project description or use of fund. So for general operating support applicants, please summarize any specific music program or project that New Music USA's funding would help to advance. If applicable, please include the names of the specific music creators you'll be supporting. And for creation of new work or live music for dance applicants, please provide a project description, including an outline of the project, description of what it is, who is involved, and the anticipated timeline. So that's information on the projects. Also, for creation of new work and live music for dance applicants, we would like to know information about the creators and musicians involved in the project. And we'd like to know, what city and state they're coming from. If you have any link to their websites, that'd be wonderful to provide. We would also like bios of the creators or musicians involved. Next, we'll have a section on inclusion and belonging. So please share a brief outline on how you address inclusion and belonging within your organization and programming, including your policy for remunerating artists and creators in the event of canceled performances or commissions. Then we also ask for music samples. So we would like to have 2 to 3 samples of music that your organizations have commissioned or programmed. You may provide this as links to YouTube, Vimeo, or uploads for, WAV or MP3 files. Keep the file uploads to under 500 megabytes. And if your files are larger, we would appreciate it that you share a link to YouTube or Vimeo instead. And for the creation of new work and music for dance, please include a work sample of the music creator or musicians you're planning to work with. And then we'll ask for financial information. So we would love to know the amount requested, a budget of your current financial year. So for general operating support, please include your request to New Music USA in your income projections. For creation of new work and live music for dance, we would like a budget of your project. And so, as you can see on the right side of the screen, there's this is how the application kind of looks like in the finance section. The system that we use is SM Apply, and you'll see this this section in the application. So all applicants should share organizational budget totals representing the last 3 years. So in this case, total incomes and expenses for fiscal year 2025, 24, and 23. And only general support applicants need to share a recent audit or financial statement. And then just a word on successful applications. Successful applications will exhibit some of the traits listed, such as commitment to programming new music and providing opportunities for creators throughout the year or season, commitment to commissioning and facilitating the creation of new work, demonstrated artistic merit and performance history, a commitment to relationship building, collaboration with artists, other organizations, and community. Also offering of learning, engagement, and or artist development or educational opportunities, and commitment to building future audiences for the organization's work. Lastly, commitment to cultivating creativity, as well as leveraging new music in the service of individual and community transformation. I will hand it off to my colleagues for talking about the review process.
Yeah, before I jump in on that, I'm going to answer a couple questions live. I know Krista is answering this one, typing it out, I think. But one of the questions for our from a live music for dance applicant has to do with a project wherein the choreographer is international, but the organization and the composer are US based. Quick answer to that is that New Music USA funds are only able to be expensed to those organizations and individuals based in the US. So it's totally fine to apply for a project wherein the choreographer is internationally based. However, any funds that we are able to support would not be able to be allocated to that international partner. They could go to the organization or the composer involved or the musicians if they're based here in the US, but not to any international collaborators. I hope that makes sense. And then a couple other questions we got. So the choreographer is artistic director of our company. Should she prepare an endorsement statement? The project includes a full-length script. Should the playwright prepare a statement? In this case, I think a statement of endorsement really is would be great to come from the composer involved. I don't it, we could have one from the choreographer, but really since the choreographer is the artistic director of the company, then we know that you're the choreographer is invested in the project. Since the organization is invested in the project, so something from the composer. You could have one from playwright, but I don't know if it's necessary. As long as we have one from the composer, I think that should be fine. Um, there's a question about applying for a new work, creation of a new work project without knowing who the composer is yet. I guess one of the things we'd want to know is the timeline on that. It's more competitive if you can identify who the composer is. Um, for the request, generally that is more helpful. Um, uh, it's best to know. I mean, I don't know. I need to know a little bit more about the organization, but I think it's usually more competitive if you already know. If you've done this in the past, you could provide past examples of people who've been selected. If this is an ongoing type of work that you do, if this is a one-off project, it'd probably be best to apply with someone that you've identified already. Hope that's clear. Uh, Do you want to see choreographies of the companies or just music commission pieces? How long should videos be, and how long should the composer's work sample be? Um, for a new work for live music for dance, you have the opportunity for three music or video samples. For sure, it'd be great to have a work by the composer that you're interested in working with. It would be wonderful to have a piece by the choreographer as well as two of those. And the third could be your choice, whether it be another work of the composers or another work of the dance company. We don't set a length of ideal work sample length, but anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes is generally a good time frame. If it's longer, and it can be longer, it's generally good practice to provide listening points of where you want the panel to start listening. Um, Really, in general, for work samples, it's really good to try to curate the panel's experience as much as possible because they have such limited time in reviewing. So if you have a longer piece, it's great to direct them exactly where you want them to hear first, and then they might explore the work further. But it's best to direct them as much as possible, even if it's a short work sample and there's a long intro of 30 seconds of intro or silence or something. Try to direct the panel as much as possible to where you want them to start listening, to focus their attention as much as possible. So there's no set length limit, but you can generally between 5 and 10 minutes is a good ballpark. But again, of course, it could be longer, it could be shorter, depending on the work. That's totally fine. Okay, I'm going to dig back in so we don't get behind. Review process. So applications will be screened first by the staff for eligibility and completeness. Of course, we have this eligibility quiz now that you'll have to go through before you can apply. But we'll look at make sure everything is complete, makes sense. From there, it'll move to a panel, to a peer review panel, and we gather panelists from around the country to look at the applications. We'll probably have somewhere between 20 and 40 panelists, depending on the applications, number of applications to receive, and each application will be seen by at least 3 panelists. Generally, we try to pair the applications with panelists of similar expertise. So, the dance applications will be seen by panelists that have experience with dance companies, whether it be as a choreographer or as a composer that works regularly with dance companies. Organizations that work in the jazz genre, for instance, will be seen by panelists that have expertise in that area. So keep that in mind when you're applying. We do ask in the application site for you to pick a primary. I think we ask for a primary genre and secondary genres, and then also the type of organization that you are. Think about that when you in terms of who you want to evaluate your work. So if you're a disciplinary presenter or a venue and you do a lot of work in different things, who do you think might be best suited to evaluate the work that you do? That will help us in making sure that it gets in front of the right set of panelists. So then panelists review each application based on the four criteria that we have. And then those scores will be averaged to create a ranked list from which award determinations will be made based on the available funding that we have. Okay, moving forward. Next slide, please. And just so you all know, New Music USA is committed to inclusion and belonging across all of our activities. We serve a diverse community of applicants and grantees, and we welcome the unique contributions that all artists bring in terms of their education, opinions, religion, culture, music style, ethnicity, race, gender identity and expression, nation of origin, age, disability, sexual orientation, languages spoken, religious beliefs, and geography. We encourage applications from all people, including organizations that are led by Black, Indigenous, or people of color, LGBTQI plus led organizations, or organizations representing persons with disabilities. So the four criteria that applications will be evaluated are on artistry. So as demonstrated by the quality of the submitted work samples, the artistry of the organization's programming, including, the creators programmed and or musicians involved. So those are the areas that the panel will be looking at, the work samples and the programming. Impact, the impact the organization has on its community of artists and audience served. So this includes a history of regular and ongoing performing. So, a consistent body of work in performing, programming and engagement of diverse living U.S. territories-based music creators and or impact on the creators and musicians involved. So impact is we'll talk about, sorry, I got ahead of myself. We'll talk about impact a little bit more in a second. The third criteria is need, how you would use the support and why it's important to the organization to have the support now. And then lastly is inclusion and belonging, as demonstrated by your approach to programming, the way you work with artists, your organization's openness to all, your consideration of need, as well as artistic quality and your organization's policies. So a little bit about each of our criteria. So impact, these are some questions you might want to consider, think about, and the panel might consider when they look at each one of these criteria. So in terms of impact, is the organization working regularly? They do multiple performances, they are engaged in their community, they program living artists and creators. Do they engage with the community in meaningful ways? A lot of times the letter of support is helpful here to understand a little bit more about an organization's impact. What makes the organization unique in your community? What sets you apart? How are you different from other organizations doing similar work, or are you unique in entirely? What kind of gap might be created in the community if the organization ceased to exist? What is your special niche? How are you working with that? Not that you necessarily have to have a niche, but and then artistry, is the music programmed original and distinctive? Is the organization supporting the creative development of music creators and artists? Does the programming and artistic exploration feel relevant and considered? Does it communicate perspective? Does it explore new ideas? Again, these are just questions that might be helpful in evaluating these types of criteria. Need, why is their work important to the community and artists served? Some of these are repeats, it looks like. How will the funding from this program increase or assist in the impact? Why is the organization's important to and unique within the community? With regards to need, and one thing I want to note in terms of the application areas, we do ask we ask organizations sort of in two areas. We ask you to sort of briefly summarize, even if it's general support, to briefly summarize where the funds might be used if awarded. And then, of course, for the project support strands, we ask specifically about the project. But it's helpful to think in terms of where New Music USA support might be useful is to give us some sense of where our limited support might have impact on the work that you're doing as a general, it's particularly in the general support area. Where might this have the most impact on the work that you're doing, whether it's on bringing in new artists that you've always wanted to work with, it's creating new work, it's extending a series, or maybe it's just helping to continue things. But it's really good to get a sense of where the funds might have the most impact on the organization, and that helps understand a little bit more about the need and how that you need is unique to your organization. And lastly, the last review criteria is inclusion and belonging. So do you work with a diverse group of artists and creators? Does the programming include have a sense of inclusion and belonging? Have they considered inclusion and belonging in the organization's development? That sort of thing. So am I turning it over? I think I'm turning it over.
Hello. I'm excited to share with you about the awards. This year, we aim to fund approximately 70 to 80 organizations, and the average award is $7,000. You may apply to up to $10,000 too. And if you are awarded organizations will be required to credit New Music USA support. The application deadline is March 27th at around midnight Eastern Time. We will notify all applicants by late June of the decision on their application. If you're awarded general support, those funds are to be used within the next year, so July 2025 to June 2026. For creation of new work and live music for dance, there's a little bit longer time window, and that's from July 2025 to June 2027, based on your project timelines. This webinar is being recorded, and I'm going to post it to our website as soon as I can and to our YouTube channel. I'm typing away and getting through the Q&A. We'll also start to answer them live. As Scott mentioned earlier, whatever we don't get to, we'll share with the document, and I'll email it to you directly by Friday at the latest. And a friendly reminder to please use the Q&A and not the chat for your questions. We have some slides after this that are just kind of common questions that we might get to as well.
Yeah, why don't we go through those, Kristen?
Okay, yeah, we'll just go through them too. If you do have, and we have I'll paste these questions in the chat again, the application link, which is also linked on our program page, and the FAQ. We do have a very high volume of emails, so please give us a few days to respond. We're asking that you only email with technical questions. We do have the 2 other Q&A sessions that are scheduled on the 14th and the 18th. Next slide, please. And I'll paste those links in 1 second. This is the application preview. I have had a lot of questions in the past where maybe people aren't able to see the next section. So when you go to apply, this is 2 different pages. So to the left is the landing page, and you'll see a button to apply. And once you click that, you're going to be shown the eligibility. And if you answer yes to all the responses, indicating that you are eligible, then you're going to see the other aspects of the application. We're doing that to save everybody time. I would hate for someone to fill out a full application and them not be eligible. So that's why we made that change. But as you see, there's the eligibility bubble. And then below that are the different sections. You can mark each one as complete. You can return to the application portal. It will save your work as you go. You don't have to finish it all in one clean swoop. But you need to have all those bubbles completed, and then it will allow you to submit. And that's when your application is submitted, and you have until March 27th to complete that. And we did have some common questions about the budget. What do we mean by current budget? Well, we understand that everyone's got different fiscal years, so it's whatever you're working with. You don't have to make something special, too special for us. So it could be the calendar year, January through December, or June to July, or July to June. We do ask all applicants to submit a budget from their organization. Please
Yeah, so
include the amount that you're requesting us. Go ahead, Scott.
yeah, just a note there. So there are two separate budgets, for one for general operating support, which is an overall organizational budget where we do ask for your current financial year. And then for the project-based support ones, creation of new work and live music for dance applicants, please share a project budget. So the project that you're requesting funds for. And as noted, there are no formatting requirements. Please share documents that you have available. You can upload all sorts of different types of things, Excel, PDF, a QuickBooks report, something that gives us a sense of what your financial position is or your budget. It's really to show you've been in operation, you have history of budgeting and programming. Next slide. Oh, so that's the end of the slides. Great. Okay, so on to the questions. Let's see if I can get some of these.
I'll be typing away. I'm going to turn off my camera.
Yeah, I'm going to try to answer as many as I can live. Where'd it go? Can an organization apply twice in two different areas? No, we ask that organizations only pick one strand to apply for, please. So either pick the general support strand, live music for dance strand, or creation of new music strand. You can only apply once to one of those strands. What kind of financial statements are you looking for? 990 is sufficient. Yes, that is sufficient. That should work. If an organization primarily does an annual festival that occurs over multiple days, but within a single week, are they eligible for project support funding? So just to clarify, so the sort of two areas of funding I think we're talking about here is there's general support funding, and then there's a creation of new work funding. The creation of new work funding is project-based, but that's really for the creation of a new piece or something newly created by a composer that will be then presented and performed as part of the festival. If you're interested in funding for the festival itself and that's not associated with the creation of a new work, then you would come through the general support strand for funding the festival itself. I hope that is clear. And my organization is switching from one fiscal sponsor to another during this month. Does that matter? Is it not relevant? That doesn't matter at this stage. If awarded, we certainly that would want to be addressed, but at this stage that we won't be looking at fiscal sponsors necessarily. So that's fine. So you mentioned that the applicant may not write that letter of artistic support. In our dance company, I am both a choreographer and occasionally a project director. Do I have to ask someone else in the organization to submit the application and write the letter? Generally with the letter of endorsement, we're looking for someone from your community. Ideally, I mean, and that could be a board member. I know there was a question earlier about whether or not a board member could write the letter. That's fine. When we say we're not, we prefer not to have a letter from someone from the organization, just someone who's basically we don't want a letter of support from the same person who's applying to the application. That it seems a bit like a conflict. So we'd like someone else from your community, whether it be a board member, it could be someone who works associated with the organization in some capacity, an audience member, a collaborator, someone who knows the organization's what the organization does and can speak to it. Let's see, what else do we have here? So we plan to apply for the creation of new work category for piece we are commissioning next season, 25-26. The main goal for requesting funding is to professionally record the piece at its premiere. Is this an acceptable funding request along with the commissioning fees, et cetera? Yes, you can include recording fees in the budget of your project. You know, that can go along with the commissioning fees and other things like that. That can be included in the budget, and that's something that we would consider supporting as well. If our, just so you know, in the creation of new work strand, we are, you know, we have a limited budget, and we will be looking at primarily to have resources go towards those composer fees and creation fees probably first, so that probably would be where we would start our looking at funding, and then if there's still available funding, we would fund additional parts of the project, whether that be recording fees or other things. But we're interested first probably to fund the artists for the work that they're doing, and then secondarily the other costs associated with the project. So just keep that in mind. But it certainly can be included in the budget and something we would consider. My organization is interested in applying for live music for dance. We are planning to commission new work with a choreographer who is also the composer for the work project. That's cool. Would this project be eligible, or do the choreographer and composer need to be separate people? No, they don't need to be separate people. That sounds great. I think that's fabulous. And I'm excited to look at it. Are there separate funds available for the three funding streams? That's a very good question. The Yes and no. We have one large budget for the organization fund. We do have areas that are available for live music for dance, and areas of the budget available for the creation of new work. That all fits within a larger budget. So there are some segments of that, but the funding can come from the totality of the budget. But we do have some separate funding that is for creation of new work. We have some separate funding that is for live music for dance. But it's not just like this is the pot for that and this is a pot for that. It's a larger pot that then all kind of gets combined. So yes and no. In some ways, there are three areas and that allow us to have these three strands, but we do look across the whole budget when we're funding. Uh, So one of the questions is, what are the average award granted for general operating support? The average award that we see across the program is around $7,000. We will fund up to 10,000, but generally it's around 7,000 is the average grant. We try not to go lower than that unless the request is lower than that, or if there's an organization you know, with a lower budget size, we might go below 7,000 based on the organization's budget, to be mindful of that. But in general the average is 7,000. We try not to go below that unless there are other reasons for that. I believe I mentioned this. Is it possible to apply for both general support and for a specific project? We ask that you pick one strand and apply to one strand. So please do that. Um, I did mention about switching fiscal sponsors. That's fine. You don't have to worry about switching fiscal sponsors. That's okay. Yes, we'll share a copy of the slides. I think that's something that we tend to upload along with. We have a PDF of the slides that we can share along with the video that we have. Is there a PDF or Word document of all the application questions and word counts available? I'll, I think we can make one available. Krista, do we have one available?
Yeah, the guidelines are on the website. I'm gonna paste the link, but it starts on page, what page is that? 7?
Yeah,
Page,
there are some additional questions in the application that aren't on the guidelines, so we'll download that and upload that along with this website, like where we ask about genre and stuff. So, yeah.
okay, yeah.
Do we also need to show an audited budget from years past or just the current year? We only need for those of you who are 501(c)(3) organizations and we're asking for an audit, we only just need the most recent current year. The most recent audit you have basically is fine. Does the project budget need to show entire project expenses or just the portion of the project for which the funds are requested? That depends on the project. I could see it either way. It's usually a good idea to get a sense of the overall project through the overall budget. But if if it's I mean, it really depends on the project, and you can use your discretion there in terms of that. But it'd be generally it's good to see the overall budget. If it's a huge budget and it's just a small portion or an offshoot portion, I could see just a portion of the budget or for the specific expenses. Um, you can use your discretion and I think it'll be fine either way. Mhm. We are applying for creation of new work, so would you not want to see any other financial information? We are asking for, if you're applying for creation of new work or live music for dance, we do ask for a project budget for those. We do also ask in the financial section for you to list out your expenses and income over the last 3 years. So we will ask you to provide those numbers, and they just need to be numbers of what your most recent expenses and income were over the last 3 years. Aside from that, in the project budget, that's all we require financially from those applicants. Um, one of the members of the group creating a new work also applied to our new music creator fund. Are we still eligible to apply for new work by this same group? You can apply for work. Will those decisions on the creator fund are currently being made right now. So I don't want you to not apply. If awarded, we can figure out from there. But you are still eligible to apply. Yes. Let's see. If my organization ensemble performs my own works and sometimes other composers' works, but also growing as an organization, would it be better to apply for the organization grant or the creation of new work grant? I'm trying to. Um, so the organization primarily performs your work, but sometimes other composers' works, and you're wondering if that's competitive or if you should just apply for the creation of new work for a specific project. That's a good question. I think it depends on the type of work that you're doing and where you need the most support. The creation of new work will be exactly that. The funding would go towards the creation of a new project. So if that's where you need support, then I would encourage you for that. If you're really just looking for support for the overall work that you're doing, whether that be performing regularly or touring or things like that, it's fine that if it's mostly a single composer work, that's fine. So I think it really just depends on where you think the most need is for what you're looking for, and then use your best judgment there. I don't think from our perspective, I don't know if there's one is better than the other. I think either is fine. Okay, got through a lot of questions. We've got about 5 minutes left here. So to clarify, I'm asking whether an organization that only has programming for 1 week a year and not throughout the year is eligible for general operating support. I see. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. You are eligible to support for support, certainly, and we do have various festivals that apply for their programming. I think that's fine. I mean, you want to make a case for the impact that you provide in that amount of programming, and the work that you do, and the types of programming that you do. Make the case for that in the general support section. I think that's fine. You are eligible. Um, let's see, can a composer be submitted on multiple applications? Or if I'm a composer working with an organization asking for general funding, does that mean I can't be on a project from another organization for project support? Um, this is an interesting question and a good question. The general support, we understand that, if we're funding an organization with general support, that touches a lot of different composers and different artists involved. So that's fine. If there are if there is a single composer on multiple requests for project support or for the creation of new work support, usually that works itself out in the panel process. Usually one rises above others, and it's usually that will support one of those works. So you can appear on multiple applications, but it's unlikely that they'll be funded more than once. One composer would be funded for more than one project. Usually that kind of works itself out in the panel process, just like that. So can you please elaborate on the endorsement letters? What is most helpful? What is least helpful? Thanks. So for general support, the endorsement letter is really just an opportunity for us to hear from a member of the community about the impact that the organization has. What makes the organization important to its community, the work that it's doing, its involvement or impact on the community. Those are things that we're kind of be looking at from that endorsement letter. In terms of the creation of new work and live music for dance endorsement letters, it's really a commitment to the project and making sure that the composer is committed on the project, is involved in the project, and the collaboration involved in that. So hopefully that's helpful to some degree. Mm. So does community include audiences outside of an organization's locality? For instance, a New York-based dance company that performs regularly in the city, but also travels outside the state to collaborate with other artists. Yes, community is one of those terms that is going to be different for each organization, and how you think about community and how you define your community. So I think it's really what makes the most sense for the organization in terms of who their community is, and that might be the collaborations that you develop, not just within your city but across the country. If you collaborate regularly with other artists, it could be audiences from around the country, it could be audiences in your locality, it could be composers you work with regularly, or there's a variety of ways to think about community. So yeah, it could certainly span outside of where you're physically based, for sure. Okay, I'm going to have time for one last question here. We are organization of composers commissioning works of our members and 3 choreographers uh, and 2 musicians. Okay, applying for new work creation. Do we include the videos of our choreographers and musicians? And do they write letters of support as well as the composers? We don't want to make this overly burdensome. So in terms of a letter of support, if there's some sense that we can get that there's involvement in this, it's an interesting point because in the creation of new work, we've gotten a question before, like, well, can I commission a lot of different composers and come in under the creation of work for lots of different commissions? It depends on your project. I'm not sure. I don't know your project, but if this is a single project or multiple projects, I think that would be one question here that I would have for you. Ideally, for the creation of new work and live music for dance trends, it would be great if it were more of a singular project that came through the application rather than multiple projects under one application. It's better suited to the program. So if this is a one project that involves your member composers, a single letter of commitment, addressing that, I think would be helpful. We don't need a bunch of letters from everyone involved. That's not necessary, but as long as we have a letter that there's a commitment to this project from those involved, whether it be from one person or it could be signed by multiple people, it could be one letter signed by multiple people. There are different ways to approach that. And with that, we are over time. I want to thank you all for joining us, and thank you again for our wonderful interpreters for joining us on this call. As we mentioned, this is being recorded. We've captured all these questions. We may have missed a couple, so we'll make sure to answer those and upload those along with the video, as well as a recording of this video. If you go away from this with more and have more questions, come back to one of our other Q&A sessions, one on March 14th at 1 p.m., the other on March 18th at 2 p.m. You can find registration links for that on our website or in the guidelines. But with that, I want to thank my colleagues, Krista and Monisha. And again, I want to thank our ASL interpreters and captioners for joining us on this call. And thank you for your time for joining us. And hopefully we get to see your applications. I'm excited to see the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.